Hello, I'm Doran Ellen Beldotan. When I heard the televised reports after the shooting in the direction of Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, and contender for President Donald Trump, people were describing how they were warning security people that they were seeing something, and they were ignored. I immediately started hearing echoes of exactly the same kinds of reports that were coming out from various sources, including soldiers in Israel after October 7th, saying exactly the same thing. That numerous warnings that something was going to happen were delivered successfully and summarily ignored. When something like this happens and we hear about it in the news, it makes no sense whatsoever to try to piece together what really happened. All of that is in the realm of speculation. And speculation is not a good use of the mind. I hear rabbis making all kinds of commentaries. It was the act of God and God intervened. They don't even know whether or not it really happened. Anything that you hear on the news, when it comes down to the details, the proximate causes, anything that you cannot verify, I request of you, do not start tripping on your imaginations. Do not start speculating. It was the right, it was the left, it was Trump himself, it was staged, it wasn't staged. Don't get into all of that. Look at the overriding lesson in these events, which is, if you have control of your mind, that we see that government is becoming more and more desperate, taking more and more desperate measures, and becoming more and more ineffectual. That is the overriding message. That is the overriding teaching. Who exactly is responsible and what exactly happened, and then was it green screened, and you don't know, and that doesn't matter. The details of delusions and illusions do not matter. What matters is the overarching lesson. So the fact that government is becoming less effectual, more desperate, more theatrical, more heavy-handed, more ridiculous, is a very good sign. Because, as I've said before, with God's help, government is exactly that. It is the governing of the mentality. If we do not control our minds, the uncontrolled parts of our subconscious control us and reify themselves as the images that we see without. So that those personages that we see as them are actually our own shadows that we're reflecting out there, because we have not done the deep internal work of getting our deepest faculties of the mind, the imagining facilities and abilities. That is the kingdom, to be able to use your mind at will, for God to be able to trust you enough to show you how to really use your mind to create at will. We're given that information gradually, and only insofar as God trusts us not to take that information and go to hell with it. But the fact that governments are falling apart means to me that more and more people are getting closer to being able to control their minds, that their subconscious is no longer able to effortlessly and effectually control them. It's still controlling them, but it's working very hard to. And so when we see that governments are disappointing us again and again, bringing us into chaos again and again, are unreliable as a matter of course, as a pattern, that is when we know that we are being called upon to begin to, in earnest, do the work that we have to do in order to become sovereigns. And insofar as we are sovereign, the government doesn't matter. It won't go away. There's no reason to have a revolution to get rid of government, because there will always be those who are not in control of their imaginations who will be projecting government. And at that stage in their development, that is what they need, because they can't control themselves. But it becomes less and less relevant to those who are gaining control over their imaginations. And then what happens is the government, which was once they that ruled us, become they that serve us. Government begins to become they who provide the water and the electricity so that we can sit and learn, so that we can go about the business of becoming more holy, wiser, kinder, more gentle, not having to be involved in the rough tussle. They are doing the rough tussle stuff for us. They become our servants. And that is what a government is supposed to be. Not a government, but politicians who are civil servants. That's their real job. If someone takes on a servant in their home, and they begin to treat that servant as though the servant is the one who owns the home. At first the servant will say, is this some kind of a test? Am I being tested? And then later they'll be saying, is there something wrong with this person's mind? And when they become convinced that that person is convinced that the servant is actually the owner, they begin to act like the owner. And then you're in a situation where not only do you have a servant acting like the owner to the real owner who thinks the servant is the owner, but the owner of the house is being treated with disdain because the servant knows full well that they aren't the owner. They know they're supposed to be the wood choppers and the water carriers. And they're always a little bit unsure because they never know when the real owner of the house is going to snap out of his reverie and get over the effects of whatever kind of hallucinogen he's taking and suddenly realize that he's actually the owner of the house. And this is precisely what we're seeing. So rather than wasting your time trying to speculate about the specific details of an illusion, look at the overall message and begin to undertake the real business of becoming sovereigns. The kingdom of David is a unity of sovereigns. There isn't one king who rules over all. Each rules over their own faculties, and they join hands as equals. Some are greater in some ways, some are elders, and they're respected more on the basis of what they know best, and their vetik, how do you say, their seniority. Yet and still, there are no more important and less important. This is a unity of sovereigns, and that's the way humanity is supposed to be living. Thank you for listening.